Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Stars of Akarios, a narrative, campaign-based epic space battle game. And a quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this one. I'm a sucker for sci-fi dogfighting, and it's pretty cool to see it in a campaign setting, but how does the game do? Let's find out and get to the list. My point number 5 is the world exploration aspect of the game, a different way of playing that you go into every once in a while. Basically, your pilots will get out of their ships and actually go exploring some sort of planet or space station and find things out and discover little details at different explorable points. And on the positive side, there's a nice feeling of exploration and mystery here. You get some nice branching path choices and alliances, especially in the bigger ones. And even with some simple mechanics, just the little paragraph structure they use really works pretty well to get some exciting moments. But on the negative side, moving through all of this with new mechanics, reading paragraph after paragraph, can sometimes feel a little bit fiddly and bloated, especially when not much is happening. And another negative is that the player count doesn't work as well here as it does in space battles. With more people to spread out and more actions, these become way easier. With only a single character, it can be a bit of a challenge in some of them. My number 4 point is also a mix, but leaning pretty close to pro, and that's the story and the campaign in the game. My minor complaints that bring it slightly down to a mix is that the writing is not always great. There are some grammatical errors, and it just does its job. It's not anything really exceptional. And within that, the characters aren't necessarily fleshed out. Well, a few of them are that you spend a lot of time with, but other ones you don't necessarily feel like you ever really get a feel for their personalities. Again, those are minor complaints that just barely bring this to a mix. But overall, without any spoilers, the epicness of this campaign, the huge, exciting story that they are telling, the pretty good world building, the different alien races and factions you interact with and different the ways they function, I just find it really very well done and very impressive for the ambition that they went with, and I think generally they succeeded. My third point is also a mix, and that's how the characters upgrade across the campaign. On the positive side, I do like the basic upgrading system. There's a lot of cool stuff to gain here. First of all, you have sort of a class system based on which ship you're flying that limits you to certain upgrades. So that gives some replay and some variety to the system, and adding new engine parts, new ways to move, new attack possibilities, it's all very exciting. And then based on the choices you make in the campaign, you unlock new pilots and new ships, and they do a nice thing where they automatically upgrade these based on how far you are in the campaign so that they're immediately usable, so you can kind of trade out if you're not liking your character that much. And this game was heavily influenced by Gloomhaven, so they also have your own hit deck that you can upgrade with bonuses and things. You've seen Gloomhaven, you've seen this before, but it works well here too. The only thing that pushes this slightly down to a mix for me is that your rewards at the end of each scenario, and there are a ton of them, tend to be worse if you lose in terms of upgrade possibility. You get fewer upgrades and you get less money to buy new upgrades. I understand the need to give you a bonus for winning and a penalty for losing, but I wish they had found a way to do it outside of the upgrading scheme, because basically it's kind of a poor get poorer system. My number 2 point is looking at the enemies in the space combat, because that's where you'll spend the majority of the game. And a lot of this works really well. They have nice little panels for each ship. It's pretty easy to keep track of the things related to each of the individuals. They also have unique decks of cards for each enemy with different ways of moving and attacking, and this is both a pro and a con. I don't see as much difference as I kind of wish there was between the same type of enemy ship. If you go against fighters from different races, they tend to kind of move the same. They tend to attack pretty similarly. Same thing with the middle ships for each race. Same thing for the big ships in each race. Don't get me wrong, they do have differences. They do move faster or slower. They do have sort of more predictable patterns of attack, but it's just not quite as varied as I would like, but still somewhat varied, so it's kind of right in the middle there. Now, I do like the simplicity of how the enemies activate, and it is consistent for all of them. That is basically charged towards you, which better or worse at least makes it easy to resolve. Although a negative with that point is I think they made the ships, the enemy ships, a little too maneuverable. They tend to turn a ton and very easily get shots off on your ships, even when you work really hard to get directly behind them, and it does tend to undo some of the cool tactical positioning you might be using in the game, so it's slightly frustrating sometimes. But my number 1 point is focus on the same thing, and it is a full pro for what you're doing on your turn. The tactical positioning of moving around, trying to set up your perfect shot, especially when you get area of effect weapons later and you can set up a giant explosion to take out multiple enemies at once. It can be so exciting. And that all comes down to the fun simplicity of the ability cards I already mentioned and how you use your 4 activation dice to trigger them and pull off cool tricks. I think it works great. Now, don't get me wrong, you are going to be frustrated associated with your die roll sometimes, but a single stress lets you re-roll as many dice as you want, at least once per round. So I feel like the mitigation is pretty good, and again, pulling off these really cool abilities, especially as you unlock these super powerful ones later in the campaign, is consistently fun and exciting, and makes these space battles very fast and impactful. Overall, I can recommend Stars of Akarios if you're looking for a very epic, very grand scale campaign-based game with a ton of scenarios and a lot of cool stuff to discover. Also, if you like quick tactical battle games, the battles here take maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and the dice placement makes it pretty exciting. On the other hand, if you're looking for a game with incredibly immersive writing, with perfect balance, or one that doesn't require a huge time commitment and you can just throw the game down and play for a little bit, this might not be the right one for you. And if you want to see the game in action, Barrent already did a video. Click the link up there. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.